What would you do if someone hurt someone that you love? If they killed someone you treasure? Is it even possible to hold oneself back in cases like that? Well, in the following cases, the victims' families didn't feel that courtroom justice was good enough, so they decided to take matters into their own hands, attacking the killers of their loved ones in court. This is Michael Madison. The serial killer was accused of several crimes, including 3 murders in Ohio. Michael killed 3 women between 2012 and 2013 before he was arrested. Before his preliminary hearing, Michael learns the magnitude of his crime.
Mr. Madison, I'm going to read to you the nature of the charges against you and summarize each one for you, as well as giving you the potential penalties. I know you've had a chance to speak with counsel. Is that correct, sir?
Yes. Now in court, Van Terry, the father of one of the victims, addresses the judge.
How you doing, Your Honor? My name is Van Terry. Wow, that's your own Terry. Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown.
Van Terry now turns to speak directly to Michael.
Who's touched our families, taken my child.
But the big shock was when Michael unleashed his craziness and smirked at Van Terry, causing havoc in the courtroom. After a while, the officers managed to bring everything back to normal and things went on. It is now the jury's turn to render a verdict. Following the jury's recommendation, Judge Nancy McDonald reads her sentence.
We therefore unanimously find that the sentence of death should be imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison.
The victims' families express how they felt following the sentence.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being could do to not one, but 3 human beings. It is incomprehensible. You cajoled, lured, and deceived Shatisha Shealy.
Michael Madison is still serving a life sentence in jail today. However, this wasn't the first time that parents lost it over the killer's actions in court, such as during the sentencing of 18-year-old Payton. Payton was facing multiple charges for murder.
Yeah, he shot so many people in there.
A white supremacist, Payton Gendron, opened fire at predominantly black Tops Friendly Market store in New York on May 14, 2022. 10 black people tragically died and 3 more were injured before he was eventually arrested. Now, in court, the victims' families expressed their feelings against him.
I watched you kill my mom. I watched you on the internet. I watched you shoot her once, reload, and shoot her again.
Barbara Massey gave one of the most heartfelt statements.
You killed my sister. Kat, I'm going to tell you about my sister, Kat. Kat weighed 110 pounds, 72 years old. Kat would do anything for anybody, anytime. Kat was intelligent. She was a teacher. She was my best friend. She was anything at any given time. Kat was a protector.
But as she was still talking, a purported relative wanted Payton to know how he felt.
Never go in no neighborhood to take people out. Don't do it.
Luckily, the police were able to calm the situation. Now it's Payton's turn to speak.
I'm very sorry for all the pain I forced the victims and their families to suffer through. I'm very sorry for stealing the lives of your loved ones. I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I shot and killed people because they were black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate. I know I can't take it back, but I wish I could. And I don't want anyone to be inspired by me and what I did.
You don't need none of that shit! Fuck out of here! You don't need that shit!
Eventually, the judge read her sentence.
The damage you have caused is too great. and the people you have hurt are too valuable to this community. You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again. It is the judgment of this court for your conviction under the first count of the indictment, a domestic act of terrorism motivated by hate in the first degree, an A1 felony, that you be sentenced to life imprisonment.
Payton was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. But would this be the last time a family member would lunge at the perpetrator in court? Take, for example, the case of Dale Williams. There was no order in this courtroom in Youngstown, Ohio, as two brothers attacked the man who had killed their mother. Dale Williams, 62, had entered a guilty plea to aggravated murder in connection with the death of his ex-girlfriend. Her family was present for his sentencing in the Youngstown, Ohio courtroom, where her two sons attempted to get some justice of their own. One of the men appeared to lunge at Williams across the table. Court officers tried to stop the attack, but the man was able to grab Williams by the feet and drag him. The victim's other son appeared to try to help his brother, but one officer pulled out a taser gun. The brothers appeared to give up their fight. Williams was taken out of the courtroom, and his sentencing was postponed. 30-year-old Anthony D. and 23-year-old Jerome Stewart were arrested and charged with assault, contempt of court, and obstructing official court business. This, however, would not be the last time a family member attacks a killer in court. Let us head to the sentencing of James Douglas. For this one, we delve into the records of a 1992 murder trial in Mobile, Alabama. James Douglas Gonzalez, a 15-year-old defendant, faced charges of murder in relation with the shooting death of 18-year-old Matthew Hall. Approximately 9 months prior, Hall and his friends were celebrating at a nearby motel. During the event, Hall approached a car in the parking lot with Gonzalez as a passenger. According to Gonzalez, Hall allegedly slapped him and initiated an attack, prompting Gonzalez to shoot Hall in self-defense.
At trial, a dozen police officers and sheriff's deputies are stationed around the room as the jury returns with a verdict. Among those anxiously waiting is the victim's father, Matthew Hall Sr., and the victim's younger brother, Kevin.
During the trial, a dozen police officers and sheriff's deputies were strategically positioned around the room. As the jury deliberated and eventually returned with a verdict, among the tense onlookers were the victim's father, Matthew Hall Sr., and the victim's younger brother, Kevin. Their anticipation was centered on the hope that Gonzalez would be convicted for murder. However, when the outcome did not align with their expectations and the jury instead found him guilty of a lesser misdemeanor charge, criminally negligent homicide, it proved to be an overwhelming disappointment, particularly for the younger Hall. Kevin Hall leaps from his seat and over a partition to charge at Gonzalez and lands a punch to his face. Dad Hall Sr. soon joins the mayhem. It took several people to restrain the Halls, preventing them from reaching the defendant and securing them to the ground. Additional law enforcement was summoned to restore order in the court. Gonzalez's mother and grandmother were left in tears, and the spectators were visibly shaken. Despite the chaos, Gonzalez emerged from the skirmish without serious injuries and was escorted out of the courtroom, while those affected by the tumultuous situation were attended to by paramedics. Following the incident, Mobile County Circuit Judge Braxton Cottrell imposed a 5-day jail sentence on Matthew Hall Sr. and his son Kevin for contempt of court. However, they were released after spending just one night behind bars. As for Gonzalez, he returned a month later for sentencing and received a 1-year prison term, the maximum allowed for the misdemeanor charge. We're at Cedar City, Utah's 5th District Court for Tristan Lamoreaux's sentencing. Lamoreaux had just entered a guilty plea to killing his wife Misty after a fight broke out in their apartment. She reportedly took 5 bullets to the head, according to press reports. Police discovered Misty's body in the restroom and Lamoreaux fleeing the area. Lamoreaux is now in the middle of the courtroom surrounded by 4 sheriff's deputies. Jason Wilson, Misty's brother, is called to the front of the courtroom by Judge Michael Westfall to give an impact statement. Wilson directs an imposing gaze at the defendant as he moves to the platform. Lamoreaux appears unfazed, though. He sways back and forth in his chair in a nonchalant manner. Wilson interrupts Misty's tearful testimony after a little while to focus entirely on Lamoreaux. Since Lamoreaux doesn't seem to be affected by the words, Wilson tries a different strategy. Once Wilson starts talking directly to the man who killed his sister, the sheriff's deputies move in. Wilson jumps at Lamoreaux, but he is pushed back against the barrier by his attorney. Lamoreaux gets to his feet, appearing prepared to charge, but is quickly knocked down and dragged away from the chaos by a deputy. The chairs are left swaying as deputies bring Wilson to the ground and restrain him. These inmates appear totally unconcerned by the mayhem that has taken over the courtroom. Shortly after, the deputies handcuff Wilson, who then apologizes for his outburst. The judge orders his removal. Once the deputies restore order in the courtroom, Lamoreaux resumes rocking in his chair, unbothered, just like before. Jason Wilson was not charged with the incident, but Tristan Lamoreaux was ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder and given a sentence ranging from 15 years to life in prison. It was clear that Wilson wasn't happy with what Lamoreaux did, his reaction being similar to that of Vashon Flowers. Vashon was being charged with murder. He had shot his wife Jamie Thomas Flowers to death after they got into a fight over smoking. In court, the victim's daughter is now explaining what transpired.
He was irritable and said that he was a grown man. If he wanted to buy cigarettes, he would buy cigarettes. Down on the ground and started choking my mother. Actually, I heard, "You don't have to do this, Vashon. Please don't do this. You don't have to do this." And then I heard gunshots.
But during her sentencing, Landon Thomas, victim's son, couldn't hold himself back. Vashon was eventually sentenced to life in prison. So tell us in the comments, do you agree with what these family members did?